Assalamu alaikum, welcome and welcome back everyone. My name is Parvish Wali and today I'm here with Jonathan Mast. So, hello, thank you so much for joining me today. And can you give us a quick introduction about yourself?
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here. My name's Jonathan, as you mentioned, and I'm an AI consultant and coach, and I help businesses and organizations learn how to use AI in their marketing, in their operations, and things like that in order to save time and hopefully serve their audience and their clientele better.
All right. Okay, so one of my first questions is one of the few reasons you believe so strongly in AI is for its time efficiency, as you mentioned before. But would you say AI ruins your attention span over time? Like, let's suppose you're doing something an AI can't do, and you're not getting results as fast as what you've now normalized. This can lead to discouragement, demotivation, and ultimately slothfulness, which can lead to an array of terrible things. Do you think this creates a problem in the long run?
I don't. I actually don't think that's going to happen. Obviously, there are always some people that are looking for an excuse as to why their lives aren't going well, and there will be people that blame AI for that. But AI is an amazing tool that amplifies experience and skill based on what the user has. And I think, much as a craftsman might use power tools in order to do their job better, I think AI allows business people and just common people to go ahead and use it to learn things, to make their lives better, to help basically, again, amplify their skill and experience. So personally, no, I don't buy into any of that negativity. I don't believe it will be a result, and I think that's very unlikely.
Okay, that's interesting. Another pretty similar question is how far as a society can we progress implementing AI into our day-to-day life, which can be which can be perceived as recycled and pre-existing knowledge. So in this way, we're not really innovating or creating anything new because AI depends on already existing knowledge. So AI
Well,
isn't creating.
I would contend that there's nothing new on Earth anyway, that even on the ideas we have today are not really new. They're inspired by things that we've already seen and learned and things like that. I'm just returning from a mastermind event that was held out of the country that I attended with about 100 other business owners. And that event covered things that I've already been told, things that I've already learned, but things that maybe I wasn't doing already. And there no doubt I was inspired by that event to come up with some ideas that are new to me, but are not new in the big picture. It's nothing new. I don't accept the argument that it's just reusing data and doing that. That's what we do as human beings as well. We don't come up with brand new earth-shaking ideas that have never been come up before as a general rule. Are there exceptions? Sure, there's exceptions. But AI, one of my favorite stories about AI is consolidation of research that's happened with diabetes here in the United States and in Great Britain, where they have actually looked at the last 30 to 40 years of data on diabetes, and AI has helped identify traits and connections that we as humans didn't see, and they're now working on new treatments and possibly even a cure for diabetes based upon that. I don't consider that rehashing of existing information. I consider that, again, a new idea. So again, I don't accept that premise.
But is that really a new idea? The AI was summarizing already existing information, like you just mentioned about the studies. And another
It's
thing is,
great. Go ahead.
and continue.
I say it's a great question, and I understand where you're coming from, but that's a new idea as much as it is for you or I to have a new idea based upon information that we've been given. Obviously, if you don't want to believe in AI or somebody in the audience doesn't want to believe, I'm not here to change their mind. They're more than welcome to ignore AI and let the world go on, in my mind, beyond without them. And I think that's a huge danger, whether you're a business owner, whether you're an employee, or whether you're just, trying to learn, like yourself as a student. I think that, ignoring AI and believing that it is a negative for society is just a great way to set yourself up to fall behind. But again, if people don't agree with me, that's okay.
Okay, that's fine. I'm not trying to argue. I just want to have a good discussion with you.
Sure. No, and that's
previously
why I'm just trying to say it's
when Gemini bought rights to Reddit. I don't know if you heard about it, but when they
I
did
did.
that, oh, okay, that's great. When they did that, then after that, when you would ask a question to Gemini saying something like, as a joke, people would ask how many, there was real proof of this being answered. People would ask how many, how do I say healthy? Something like that. I can pull up screenshots I saw in a little documentary on YouTube, and then Gemini would answer a gallon of gas, because previously on Reddit it was people were joking and stuff in posts, and Gemini took that information and gave it to the person unknowingly. And another argument you can kind of use is the fact that AI doesn't take responsibility. Like on ChatGPT, on the bottom of the screen, it says that ChatGPT isn't responsible and such and such. And also the developers, they're not taking accountability for whatever information the language model might give, as well as the language model itself. When it gives medical advice, it says to go to an actual doctor, as this might not be true, the information it's given you. And so this leads to the question that if you were to get into, let's say, legal trouble, okay, unlikely, but you have a business in AI, your business basically revolves around AI. And so if you were to get into legal trouble due to something an AI said and that was misinterpreted, misunderstood, or overall it was just completely wrong. It was false information. And so if something were to happen, then you would be responsible. It wouldn't be the AI, it wouldn't be the developer. So can you really rely on it when it can't take responsibility, when it showed biases? As also Amazon, one thing they did was when they had an algorithm, and this was a, I believe, a job seeking algorithm. It was not even implemented. It was learned that the AI in its in its like program, the AI showed biases towards male candidates over female.
Well, I think the mistake that's happening here is you're attributing too much to AI. AI is not sentient. There is, as you know from reading books and news articles and all that, we can find data on virtually any side of a topic that's purporting any multiple different opinions that are out there. AI has been trained on all that data. And if we don't prompt it well, if we don't communicate well, we're going to get garbage answers out of it. AI is not sentient. It doesn't, it's never going to take responsibility, and it shouldn't. And as humans, we shouldn't expect it to. It's a research tool, it's a content creation tool, it's an ideation tool, but it is not infallible by any stretch of the imagination, any more than we are. It doesn't show biases, for example. Now, I agree with what you're saying that it found with Amazon, but to have bias means that it was conscientious of something it was doing. And AI doesn't have a conscience. AI was trained on biased data, yes, but AI itself is not biased, if that makes sense. I know maybe you feel like I'm splitting hairs there, but I think people are way too quick to blame AI when there's really nothing to blame AI for whatsoever. AI is simply, as you said, it is using what it's learned and then providing us feedback on that. It's still our responsibility as humans to interact with that and to use it as a tool and not to offload our responsibility to a tool. Just that wouldn't be a responsible thing to do. And I don't think most people really intend to do that. Obviously, there are people like yourself that want to pick on the parts of AI that are problematic. And just like you and I having a conversation, we may have different opinions. We may, we live in different parts of the world. We may have different customs. It doesn't mean your custom is wrong and mine is right, or vice versa. It simply means we have different perspectives. And I think that same holds true of AI.
Okay, I'm just trying to shed some light on the topics that I didn't have many people discussing. So I thought this would be a good time to. And so I'm going to,
It's your interview. You're welcome to ask any questions you'd like. I don't agree with your premises.
that's fine. Okay. And my next question is, Previously, you mentioned before AI lets you create better quality content, while not necessarily original, better quality nonetheless. Although it is subjective, many people prefer innovative and creative content in many fields. So, how do you balance this out for your clients?
Well, I think again, one of the key things here is it's how we're communicating with AI. If we do not give it the proper inputs, we're not going to get the right outputs out of it. I refer to content generation as AI assisted content generation, not AI generated content. You're absolutely right. People want content that's helpful, that answers their question, that provides value to them. I don't believe people care one way or the other whether that content was written in a collaboration between myself or anybody else and AI or solely by myself. They care ultimately about the value of that content. And much like anything else, any other tool that's out there, if we give AI poor information up front, we're going to get poor results. AI is not a magic pill. It's not a magic button. We can't just go, oh, AI is going to do this for me and expect it to be done perfectly. It's not how it works. And people that expect that, for example, if I were going to write a social media post and I asked ChatGPT to do that for me without asking it the appropriate questions, without giving it the appropriate information, and without guiding it in the direction that I wanted to go, I'm going to get a garbage social media post that no one's going to engage with.
All right. So you were talking about how you don't think your clients would care who is creating the post, whether the content you're creating is with AI or not. But in some cases, I do think it is important because I'm pretty sure you heard, since you're pretty into the AI world. Uh, I'm sure you probably heard of this, like I just said, but Sona AI is getting sued right now because of copyrighted music. And before, it wasn't copyrighted music. People could make AI music, AI songs, and they could put it on their videos and they wouldn't get copyrighted. But now Sona is getting sued for that. And I'm not sure who, but whatever the other party is saying that it should be copyrighted. And so if you were to sell your clients that music, but I don't think you sell music, and you were to say it's non-copyrighted music, they were to put it over their video, content, whatever, and then they were to get copyrighted, that wouldn't be so great. Especially if you don't mention that it's AI.
Well, first and foremost, I don't recommend anybody use AI, especially in the context of providing information for clients, and not share that. For example, when our agency creates our AI assisted content, we call it that. We're very upfront about what we're doing. Our clients are well aware of the value that they're getting. The other thing you need to remember is that in the world, anyone can sue anyone for anything. Just the fact that you're being sued doesn't mean that you've done anything wrong. If you and I, were, for example, to go to art school, and this is something that's very rarely discussed, if we go to art school, most people don't realize that for the first few years in art school, what you do is that you literally learn to copy the masters. In other words, they give you paintings that masters have done, whether that be Da Vinci or anybody else. And of course, I can't think of any artists at the moment, but Picasso, doesn't matter. And you as a student are taught to copy their style, to learn their style, to do that. Ultimately, through your own experience, you're going to develop your own styles pertaining to that. But that doesn't mean that it wasn't an original piece of art, and it certainly doesn't mean that it had any copyright infringement. Now, I'm not an attorney, so I'm not here to make those decisions ultimately as to where those lie. But I think it's a straw man argument to say that simply because AI was trained on content, that anything it creates is now a copyright infringement. You and I both learn by reading books and things like that. I've got a whole dozens of books behind me that I've read. Those books have all influenced my thoughts and my ideas. And as a result, I promise you that most of the ideas that I come up with have been in one point or another discussed at some level within that. The book that I have right here, $100 million Leads from Alex Hormozi, talks about the fact that he recommends giving value to people to build an audience, and that by giving value to people to build an audience, basically giving away the knowledge for free and selling the implementation of that. That's something that I believe in, and I do, and I teach my clients. Does that mean that I'm infringing on Alex Hormozi's copyright? No, not at all. That's not a concept that only he's done. I learned in sales training when I was a young man almost 40 years ago from a sales trainer called Zig Ziglar. And one of his famous quotes was, if you help enough other people get what they want, you can get whatever you want. In many ways, that's the exact same thing that Alex Hormozy is now talking about in his book. And so, again, there are no brand new ideas. There's different spins and things like that. I simply don't accept the argument that AI is a bad choice. There are people that do, and that's okay. I'm not here to convince them otherwise.
Okay, so I wouldn't say necessarily that art school, not that this is too much on topic, but art school says that copy this art style, because a huge portion of art school, like, is to show your emotions on art, and some of the greatest artists has done that, and that's why they're the greatest. When it comes to copying, as you said, it's not considered copyright, yes, but they do that because they're trying to learn a technique, they're trying to develop their skills.
Absolutely. The same way that AI has, and I'll put learned in quotes because AI is simply a large encyclopedia that has immediate recall. It hasn't necessarily learned any of that. It's simply information that it uses to respond to us. Again, AI is not sentient. It doesn't have a brain to put together things that it didn't already have. Literally, large language models talk about the fact it's predicting the next word in a sentence, the next word that it's going to create. It's not out there sentient. It may seem that way because it has so much knowledge and it's drawing on so much experience, but AI is not out there being sentient and creating things that are brand new. But I also don't believe that it's creating copyright infringement. You can go back to your example of Suna getting sued for music copyright. If that music that it created is different than the music that it listened to, again, not being an attorney, but morally and ethically, I don't see any issue with that as long as we're not copying that music. You can look at different artists that are out there. And obviously being a student, you may or may not have experienced this, but just the other day I was listening to a song from somewhere in the late 70s or early 80s. And I'm like, wow, that's a great song. I know that. I remember hearing it. And my wife said, who did that? I'm like, oh, that was the Beatles. I was totally wrong. It sounded like the Beatles. It was of the Beatles style, but it wasn't the Beatles. It was done by Electric Light Orchestra, and a different band from that time. But the Beatles didn't sue ELO just because they created a song that had a similar style to them. Both of those ended up having mega hits out of those songs, and that's this again. They were not copies, but that song from ELO sounded a lot like the Beatles. That doesn't mean that was a copyright issue.
That was not, but there's a huge difference with copying, full on copying someone and getting inspired by them. Many artists successfully sued other artists for taking lyrics and also taking melodies from their
Absolutely.
song.
And again, I think I don't know what point you're trying to prove here this morning. We simply don't agree. So I think we should move on to your next topic because I'm no offense, but I'm not interested in arguing. If you don't want to accept that AI is a great tool, I'm okay with that.
No, no, I
Not
do
here. I'm
believe
not here. I'm
AI.
not going to change my mind, and you're not. I'm obviously not going to change yours, and that's okay. So, as I told you, we have a very limited time because you were late for this interview. So, based on the fact that you were late and didn't demonstrate professionalism in the way that you handled that, I'm going to then ask that you either move on or, based upon the time that we have, that we conclude our interview because we're not going to change each other's opinions. So. I promised you 15 minutes. We're at 19 minutes. How would you like to wrap this up? Because I'm not interested in having an argument with you.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, so my next question would be, would you say AI will foster a global economic crisis in the future due to its
Power wash.
accessibility and
With all due respect, you're not listening. I offered you 15 minutes. That's what you asked for. We're now at 19 minutes, and you're continuing to ask me questions that are
that's
argumentative. I'm not interested in continuing this interview. I wish you the best of luck. I want to commend you on reaching out to me to have an interview. There's so many people that aren't willing to get on video, but I also would like to encourage you as someone who is obviously a bit older than you are, and that's that in the future, follow through on the commitments that you made. Don't make people wait for time. We're now running literally 16 minutes past the end of when we were supposed to enter things. No, you tried to preach to me. Let me please give you the advice. I'm commending you on what you're doing. But I also want to tell you that simply having a bunch of questions and trying to argue, it doesn't necessarily create any goodwill, doesn't necessarily achieve anything. We clearly have different opinions, and that's okay. I'm perfectly fine with people having different opinions. What I'm not as okay with is the fact that you weren't on time. I'm not as okay with the fact that you're not listening to what I'm saying. And I'm not okay with the fact that now you've taken me 5.5 minutes past what you asked me to commit to based upon the fact that you want to get a message out there. So thank you for your time. Thank you for reaching out. But please keep your commitments moving forward. It will cause you to be a much more memorable person and to have more success in life. Thanks so much.
Okay.
I appreciate it.
Okay. Thank you so. And for the record, what he didn't mention was that I messaged him at 6:06, sorry, 6:05, and I asked him for an interview, and he did reply at 6:30. So he was the one that was late. I was only 6 minutes late because I was struggling with sending the link. Thank you for watching this interview, and I'm really sorry it ended on bad terms.